A lot of people want to build apps until the conversation gets technical. Then the words start flying around: auth, payments, analytics, webhooks, backend, events, tracking, subscriptions. Suddenly the whole thing feels way more complicated than it did when it just seems like screens and features. In this video, I want to make this simple. I want to walk through a core parts of a real app: auth, payments, analytics, and webhooks. Because once you understand what these parts do, the whole app starts making a lot more sense. And if you're trying to build software and even understand how software works, this stuff matters a lot. These are not random technical extras. These are part of what makes an app actually function in the real world. Let's begin with auth. Auth answers a simple question: who is this person and what are they allowed to access? That is the job. When somebody signs up, logs and logs out, resets a password, or comes back after later, auth is really the main point in this conversation for that aspect. Auth helps the app know who's this user, who's the account, what belongs to them, and what should they see, what should they be able to do. Without auth, you do not really have a personal app experience. You just have screens. Because the app needs to connect the person to their data and their settings and their account state and their permissions. Also, auth helps shapes trust. Because people want to know where their account is secure, their data is attached to them, the app is actually handling access in a clean way. Then you have payments. Payments answers another simple question: how does money move through the app? What changes when somebody pays? This part matters because once you charge money, the product changes. Now you have plans, billing statements, subscriptions, upgrades, downgrades, failed payments, trial periods, access rules, maybe credits, maybe one-time purchases, maybe recurring value tied to usage. Payments are not just about collecting money. Payments affect what users can access and what the app unlocks and what the onboarding says. What happens when payments fail, how businesses make money, how clear the product feels when somebody is deciding whether to pay. That is why payments matter so much in product design, because the minute money enters the system, the user experiences change. Then you have app analytics. Analytics answers this question: what are users actually doing inside the app? That is huge, because without analytics, you might think people love a feature, you might think onboarding is smooth, you might think people are using a product in a certain way. Until you track what is actually happening within your app, you do not really know. Analytics can tell you that. Where the user came from, what they clicked on, where they dropped off, what features they used, what screens they stayed on, whether they came back, whether they converted, whether they reached the core value moment. That helps you improve the product in a much smarter way. Because now you are not building off opinions alone. You are seeing real, actual behavior. Behavior tells you the truth fast. You have webhooks. Webhooks is one that confuses a lot of people first. The idea is simple. A webhook is one system telling another system that something happened. That's it. An event happens, a message gets sent, another system reacts. For example, if somebody makes a payment, the payment platform can send a webhook to your app that says this user is paid. Then your app can update their plan and unlock features, log the event, and maybe even send a confirmation email. Somebody signs up, that event triggers a webhook that tells another system to create a user record and add it to an email flow or update a CRM. Webhooks help systems stay in sync, then move events across tools and services. Once you start building apps that connect to other tools, webhooks become a big deal, because real apps usually do not live alone. They connect to email, payments, analytics, storage, notifications, CRMs, and internal services. And all of these systems need a way to react when something important happens. When you put this all together, you start to seeing how a real app works. Somebody creates an account, Auth handles identity and access. They land inside the product, analytics start tracking behavior. They hit a limit or want more value. Payments handles the transaction and changes their account state. That payment event fires a webhook, The app updates access, maybe sends an email, maybe logs the event, maybe updates another system. All of this is connected. Once you understand that, apps stop feeling like random magic. They start feeling like systems with jobs. That matters a lot if you are building software because it changes how you think about the product. You stop thinking only in screens. You start thinking in flow states, permissions, events, and outcomes. You realize login is not just a screen, it's an account identity and access. You realize a pricing page is not just a design, it is business logic and account state. You realize analytics is not just tracking numbers, it is product learning. You realize webhooks are not just technical noise, they are what help the app react to the real world. This is why I think people building software should understand these pieces very early on in the process of learning how to build apps. You do not need deep in the weeds. You do not need to get deep in the weeds on day one. You do need to know what these jobs and these systems are doing because they affect structure, they affect trust, they affect monetization, they affect user flow, they affect how clean and the product feels when it's alive. So if you start trying to understand a real app, start here. Auth answers who is the user and what they can access. Payments answer how money moves and what changes when somebody pays. Analytics answers what the users are actually doing. Webhooks answers what other systems need to know when something happens. This is a strong mental model. Once you have that model in your head, software starts making a lot more sense.